Welcome to episode 85 of How About the Huskies. I'm Connor, joined by Matt and Andrew, and it's quite an exciting day in UConn land. The Huskies defeated Rhode Island in the charity exhibition 102-75. I'm kind of kidding. Obviously, it's an exhibition game, doesn't really matter, but we're all still happy. We're talking UConn basketball after a win. First time we've had to recap a game since last year's national championship, which I feel personally that's one of my favorite type of episodes we do, breaking down everything that happened. So let's just start right there. Either of you guys want to kick us off? I mean, there's a lot to talk about here. It's pretty much a tale of two halves, I feel like.
Yeah, you had the classic UConn game sometimes where it starts out slow and Rhode Island was hanging with us. They were winning by a few at one point, but then we end up in the second half just pulling away, winning by 27. But I want to start with talking about Solo Ball because he tonight looked like an NBA lottery pick, honestly. Now, that might be reaching maybe a little bit after one exhibition game, but he looks fantastic. 18 points, 7 of 10 shooting. I mean, he even the I don't know if you guys caught this, but the little run in with the URI player at half court, he was standing his ground in an exhibition game. Like this isn't even just a cupcake non-conference game. This literally does not count for a thing. It's basically a practice, but um, either way, I was really happy to see him do that tonight, and I think he's got the starting spot locked in. That might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think he starts at the point guard.
Yeah, and it's starting to look like that stereotypical second year leap there from Solo Ball. Coming into this game, wasn't really sure where he was gonna fit or entirely what he was gonna do last year. You saw the talent was there, and even coming in, he just wasn't efficient enough to kind of stick around. He was a decent shooter, but it just looks like all summer he's just been in the gym, just putting up shots. He looks like an elite shooter now. That point guard role for him, it's going to be difficult because of the performance of another player we'll probably talk about here shortly, Aiden Mahaney. But overall, very great things from Solo Ball and great things from this whole team overall.
Yeah, Solo was the guy that stuck out for me. Obviously, he led the team, 18 points, had 5 rebounds. 4 of them came in the first 5 minutes or so of the game. He was the only one really rebounding in that first half. We'll talk about the boards in a little bit here, but I agree. I feel like maybe it's not shouldn't have been a surprise, but it caught at least me off guard that he was in the lineup because obviously we don't know what goes on in those practices behind the closed doors, but mentally we kind of penciled in it'd be DR and Mahaney as the two guards, but obviously it wasn't. It was DR on Ball, and I expect Ball to stay in there. You guys say point guard. I don't think he's the point guard. He can certainly handle the ball, but either DR or Mahaney's still going to take a majority of those reps. But yeah, let's continue. Just keep on going down the box score like we usually do for these recaps. I'm only saying that because we gained a lot of new followers, new subscribers recently from that Jay Billis episode, which is going to be your second time ever seeing us. Usually we just go down the box. We're talking about what we like, stuff like that. Next up is Aiden Mahaney. 17 points, 6 of 9 shooting, 3 of 5 from three. He looked like I believe Matt in our group chat, you said it's the next Cam slash Joey. I feel like he could be better than that. I mean, definitely better than Joey. Cam, he was amazing for us, but I really liked what I saw out of Mahaney.
Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Joey comparison is kind of there. Cam, not really, but I think he's more of like a Jordan Hawkins because he can rebound the ball too. He got up for a couple of rebounds. He's like 6'3" ish, 6'4", but I see a lot of Jordan Hawkins in this kid. But this is payback for him torturing us in that round of 32 game against St. Mary's a couple of years ago. Because the reason I thought we were going to lose that game was him, but he looks great as a Husky, and I think he'll start too.
You mentioned that little group chat conversation we had. It was Andrew that was talking about Cam Spencer and Joey, but I responded with he looks a lot like Tristan Newton to me at least because he isn't the offense. The offense does not, in my opinion, run through Mahaney, but if he needs to be, he can be. And he would just take some shots that were just very Newton-esque. He got to the basket, he would go with his left hand from the right side and finish it, scoop it, and score. It was very Newton-esque, and he could just make plays sort of at will. And that's kind of what you need here. You need these guys to step up. So if you can get a guy that's going to replace Newton for a few years here and then match him up with a very Jordan Hawkins-esque player with the returning of Caraban and just all the other role players that just played fantastic tonight. It's going to be a great year again, I believe.
I just want to add on one more thing before we get deep down into the depths of this game. But I'm going to take a tweet from our good friend on Twitter, Big Larry, who said that this year, with a whole new basically starting five besides Caraban, and then a bunch of new bench pieces, any given guy can go off on any given night. Obviously, back a couple years ago, you knew you were going to have the big Klingon games, the big Sonogo games, the big Hawkins games. But I think in this, genuinely anybody in this rotation, and I agree with Big Larry there, that anybody can go off, and that's a really really good sign for good things to come this season.
And it's very reminiscent almost of the team from 2 years ago. I feel like we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because this is obviously just a preseason game, but you could tell that they took it super serious. Even Rhode Island was going at it. It felt like a regular season game. It felt like an early season game. Hurley was coaching just how he would coach in the regular season, just as passionately. And I feel like we have a lot of great things to take away from this. It wasn't a stereotypical play the bench guys the whole time. It looked like this was realistically like our rotation. Obviously, a couple minutes will get cut here and there because you want to play guys like Caraban, probably like 40 minutes a night, the whole game. But like you mentioned, you do have guys here that could go off any night. I mean, we saw signs from almost everyone. Even Sampson on offense was just getting to the rim super efficiently, getting a lot of great looks around the rim. So, things can be said about his defense and his rebounding, but you can't deny his offensive presence.
Yeah, to backtrack, this may sound a little weird, but part of it that felt like it was a regular game was us wearing like our home white jerseys. I honestly thought going in, we'd honestly just wear like our practice jerseys. It's a scrimmage, it's an exhibition, it doesn't really matter. But seeing guys like Mahaney and McNeely, all these newcomers in the UConn white jerseys playing for the first time, that just added to it. It sucks that we have to wait 23 days or whatever it is now to see them play again. But yeah, shifting kind of from we talked about Ball and Mahaney, the guards, shifting down to the front court, the forwards. We'll start with the big men. I want to know what you guys thought from the duo of Sampson, Johnson, and Terrace Reed because I feel like there was a clear better player amongst the two tonight. I just want to see what you guys have to say.
They're kind of a little bit of fire and ice. It's on and off. The paint presence was non-existent on defense. Just with Ferguson, I mean, being 7 foot tall, former UConn Husky, it wasn't pretty. And Ferguson was just scoring and rebounding at will. I feel like once we brought Reed in defensively, it got a little bit better. But then you were lacking on offense because you didn't have that around the rim presence that you have with Samson Johnson. And you could tell that Hurley was kind of sweating it a little bit because of the rotations he was running. You saw a lot of three big men with McNeely, Caraban, and whoever was in at center. He's obviously trying to get as much size out there as he possibly can, even with the guards. But overall, it was a little disappointing to have to, kind of make up for each other's weaknesses down low, coming in and coming out. Honestly, towards the end of the game, I know he didn't play against Javante Brown Ferguson, but Singare didn't look bad. Singare looked quicker out there than them. He looked like he was more aggressive towards the rim, and I saw some positive signs. He probably won't play much, but definitely not a bench warmer type player.
Yeah, now obviously there's going to be some overreactions for this because from going to a 7'2" massive dude there in the paint to a like a Samson Johnson or a Terrace Reed, it's hard to adjust. Your offense is way different without clinging in it just because of the things he did on the offensive and defensive end. But I think they'll both be good. I think that obviously, like Connor said, we don't necessarily see what happens in practice behind those closed doors. But if I were Danny Hurley, I would always, in scrimmages at least, I would always separate Taris and Sampson and just make them go at each other. And we're honestly just like make each other better. That's how we're going to get better as a team. And in that category of the big men rebounding is if they make each other better in practice. If they just like kind of slack off and don't really take it seriously and be like, oh yeah, we're national champions. Like we don't have to, not that I think that'll happen, but we're gonna be a bad or not a bad, but a not great team if they don't necessarily figure it out. So I think obviously there's gonna be some overreaction from an exhibition game. Do I think they looked awful? No. Do I think they looked fantastic? No. So there's plenty of work to do, but I think Harris Reed's going to surprise a lot of people once we get into the regular play of this season.
And I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but this is just my opinion. I feel like one of them needs to develop a little bit more of a jump shot. They're both just kind of standing around the rim. They're not really stretching the floor at all. I mean, even Klingon towards the second half of last year was stretching the floor, and they taught Sonogo how to stretch the floor. In my opinion, if they can teach Terrace Reed how to shoot and he doesn't have to clog up the paint and take inefficient shots, I feel like that would be great because if you can just keep him outside and let guys like Solo Ball and McNeely and Caraban get to the rim, then you're going to set up a great offense.
Yeah, I agree. Klingon didn't really have an outside shot, but he at least took him once in a while. Sampson is a guy who, if you guys remember coming in, he's not really a true center. He was more of like a power forward. I remember he hit a three his freshman year, but yeah, I feel like having just a threat. I'm not saying you got to go out there and make two threes a game. Just have the ability to knock one down, keep the defense honest. But I like Matt your point there about fire and ice. That's how Hurley likes it. It was Sonogo and Klingon, two completely different players. Klingon and Johnson, completely different play styles. This is pretty similar. I feel like this is Reed and Johnson, obviously speaking on the 40 minutes of basketball I just watched, is the weakest among those three pairs, but there's still a lot of room to grow. Looking at the minutes, I found this a little interesting. Sampson played 20, Terrace Reed played 18, so pretty much an even split. Singari got two at the end. But rebounding the basketball is something I was really frustrated with in this game. Sampson, starting center, only had one rebound. It was offensive, so he had no defensive rebounds as our starting center. Terrace Reed, on the other hand, had 10 rebounds and looked great down low. He's more beefy than Sampson. That's not a secret, but I just feel like if you're Samson Johnson and you're the starting center for the they're number three preseason, but top five team in the nation, you have to be able to rebound the ball. That's not really his game. He's more of a lob threat, but I don't know. I feel like if we're gonna go places, we need Sampson to be more than just a lob threat. That sure he blocked four shots. I mean, I'm not saying he's just that, but he needs to develop his game more.
And Dan Hurley isn't one to shy away from experimenting with the roster. I'm not sure if you remember much, but last year we did run some lineups when our big men got into foul trouble with Caraban at the five. And I feel like it's definitely a thought to where you could run Caraban and McNeely at a 4 and a 5 and just hope to outscore the other team. Hopefully, we can kind of figure it out. It doesn't get to that, but worst comes to worst, I feel like you have a pretty reliable option there.
I feel like that the Caravan McNeely 4-5 is like in the tournament when Klingon had like four and Johnson had 4 too, or they both had like three or something like that. If we get into foul trouble, which again was an issue tonight for Samson, it has been an issue for some time. Um, but if we get into foul trouble like that, it's gonna be tough, honestly. But I think it'll be different than last year. Klingon obviously played a ton of the time. Samson got what, like 10, 12-ish minutes a game, and Klingon had the rest. But I think honestly that this will be an even split. And it'll be matchup based too. Against a guy like Ryan Kalkbrenner, you need the physical guy. You need Terrace Reed in there. Never mind the height. You need that physical guy to make Kalkbrenner either. I know this is thinking way down the line, but to where was I going with this? To draw fouls and stuff, offensive fouls. You need the big guy in there. But I feel like Samson will get the run for the start of the season, but he'll kind of figure things out along the way.
And our defense, towards the second half of tonight looked phenomenal. Loved Jaden Ross and his cameos. Offensively, obviously still a little bit of work, but he had 3 steals tonight, and he was clamping up, causing transition breaks and scoring easy points. So shout out to Jaden Ross.
Yeah, Ross, if you guys remember, Hurley had some quotes earlier this month. He said if you watched our practice today, you'd think Jaden Ross was a top 20 pick in this year's draft. But yeah, I mean, he played in the first half. He was one of the nine dudes that played. It was the starting lineup, obviously Reed off the bench, Mahaney, Stewart, and then Jaden Ross. We did not see any first half Ahmad Noel action. We'll talk about his performance in a couple of minutes here. But Ross is a guy who I honestly don't have that high of expectations for this year, just because he didn't really contribute much last year, and we're pretty deep at that wing position. We have McNeely, we have Caraban, Stewart. Ross is kind of that next guy up, and we've seen Hurley go with smaller rotations. Usually it's been 8 guys last year. It was 9 really good guys the year before. Maybe Ross is in that rotation this year. The way Hurley's talking and the way he played him in the first half today, he ended up with 16 minutes in this game.
Yeah, honestly, he's kind of the big wild card here with this team. Like Connor just said, you don't know if he's gonna play because obviously we've had guys will be like, yeah, they're gonna not play at all really as a freshman. Maybe as a sophomore or they'll transfer out. But with him, like I can see in certain situations him coming off the bench and being able to stretch the floor. Maybe in those lower caliber Big East games. I mean, do I think he's going to be an everyday 15 minutes off the bench guy? No. But you never know. And with this, like, we're so deep this year that it's gonna like teams are just gonna be like, what in the world is happening? Because we're just gonna throw 40 different things at them and they're gonna be completely dismantled. And I think that's how we're gonna win. But honestly, he's a wild card, and I can't really say anything about if I think he's gonna contribute. And obviously everybody's gonna contribute somehow, but I think he's just gonna be the massive wild card for this team.
I agree. And the other guy who's kind of in not the same position, but like the same like group is Jaylin Stewart. I don't know about you guys. I didn't really like what I saw out of Stu. He didn't really produce that much. He ended up with 6 points, 3 or 7 shooting, missed both of his threes. He just, I maybe I expected more because I've seen all these I saw that mock draft at ESPN that had him ranked in the first round for this upcoming draft. Maybe I expected more. He's going to be a major factor for us off the bench, but I don't know. In the 40 minutes of basketball, 19 of which he was on the floor, I don't know. I didn't really like what I saw out of Stu.
Stewart is obviously a big focal point of this season. You need him to show up because he's probably, your first, second, or third option in the 2 or 3 role here. And overall, I mean, it was a little disappointing, but it looked like he was just letting the game flow and the game come to him a lot. And I've just been comparing the whole time, but it just reminds me of Andre Jackson. He's not the best 3-point shooter, but he's good with the ball and he can get to the rim efficiently. He also plays great defense, had a steal tonight. But I mean, it's easy to look at it and just say, you want him to be a top 5 player on your team, and that might not be what you get, but you might get a selfless player who's going to go out there every night and do what coach tells him to do, and that's invaluable.
Yeah, I think that ranking that Connor was talking about was a little ambitious, might have been a little ambitious, but I agree with Matt. He kind of like looks like a lot of times with guys that get a lot of attention in the offseason, they try to like kind of ramp things up and not really play their game. I think he's just not really worried about what's coming in the future. And I think tonight he just kind of played his game because I would have hate to see him like 4 shots just to try to get points. You can say I put up 25 points against Rhode Island in an exhibition game. So I wouldn't say I'm necessarily disappointed in the way he played, but it just looked like he let the game play out. Now, if he plays like he did tonight in the regular season, we may have some problems. But I think he played his game tonight. I think he did fine.
Now, on the point of concern, I don't know if you both felt this way, but watching Hassan Diarra start tonight and just kind of play a little inefficiently, he shot 2 of 6, 2 from 3. His defense was good, but I mean, are you starting a guy just because of his defense? Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's that caliber of starter, and it would be fantastic to have him repeat as Big East Six Man of the Year. So, I mean, maybe looking to Mahaney, who played very effectively and was debatably our best player out there. It's a tough decision for Hurley to make, but you got to keep guys, doing what they do well.
Yeah, I was never necessarily on board with the fact that he was going to be a starter, just because I think that he's the definition of a bench piece. Because I think if we need a spark off the bench, if Solo or Mahaney's not doing too well, I think that he can come in and be that spark plug off the bench there. And I feel like starting him would hurt us more because we would lose that big bench piece. And you never know how certain guys are going to be off the bench versus starting, but you know that Hassan Diarra is going to give you his all on both ends of the floor, no matter if he starts or comes off the bench. But if it came down to my decision, if Danny Hurley called me and said, "Do you start Hassan Diarra on this team?" I'll be expecting that call next week. I would say no. I would say roll with Solo and Mahaney and have Hassan Diarra be your spark plug for the third straight year.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree there. I feel like he's been in the program the past 2 years. He obviously coming off the bench. He's earned the opportunity to start here. And as for a spark plug off the bench, I feel like sure Haas provides like an energy spark, but if you want a guy that come in and hit a 3 or 2, yeah, I feel like Aiden Mahaney's perfect for that role. I had him as a starter going into tonight, but after seeing how Solo played, I feel like Mahaney's gonna be on the bench and he has the potential to win Big East Sixth Man of the Year. We could have back to back with two different guys, but yeah, I'm fine with Haas starting. He had 9 assists in 20 minutes. He was threading the defense pretty well. Had that connection with Sampson. He had I think two or three lobs. He just found Sampson. So yeah, I'm fine with DR starting. If I were to make a change, and I'm sure right after Hurley calls Andrew, he'll hit my line next. I would consider it at center, honestly. A guy we haven't talked about yet, and not for a bad reason, just because he just played his role, was Alex Caraban. He had 13 points, shot 5 of 9 from the field, 2 of 4 from deep, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, just doing it all. He played a team high 27 minutes and was plus 22 when he was on the floor. So he's the engine of this team. He's been a starter the past 2 years on two title teams. Some of us are surprised he's even back for a third year, but he is, and he's going to be one of the best players in the country. He certainly has a chance to be an All-American as he's projected by a lot of major media outlets. It's just, I feel like he's also a perfect mentor for a guy who plays a similar style and position in Liam McNeely.
Yeah, Alex Caravan is going to be a smooth 15 a night, no doubt. It might seem a little bold, but if you look back to like 2016, our highest points per game scorer since then has been Sonogo in 22-23 with 17.2 points. I feel like Caravan could pass that. I feel like Caravan's just that kind of guy who he's going to play his role, let the game come to him, like I mentioned, and he's too good of a player to not affect the box score. So, I mean, if you can get Caravan like 3 or 4 threes a night and he gets inside, he's become such an aggressive player. I feel like he could pass Sonogo. I feel like he can average upwards of 18 points per game this season. He's just that kind of player. They'll be quiet points, but that's just who he is, and he's going to be a now new vocal leader too.
As Matt actually just stole my line. I was obviously going to mention his stats and stuff, but I was also going to say the vocal leader part. Like, he went from being that freshman that was in a two-person class to now being the big veteran and leader on this team. And it's really cool to see. Like, I know we talked about it the other day in our group chat. Like, compare him now to when he was a freshman. Like, freshman him was, kind of a little bit of an inconsistent shooter, didn't really bring much energy. Obviously, he was good, but didn't bring much energy. And now he's just completely different guy. Not to mention the facial hair. He looked like a baby when he was a freshman. But I think he's obviously going to be our big guy this year. He, like Matt said, he'll be a 15 to 17 a night kind of guy, and it'll just be expected. If he has a bad game, it is what it is. But he's going to be our go-to guy this year, especially with the three ball. He looked fantastic shooting that ball tonight.
Yeah, I feel like he's gonna play, honestly, 33-ish minutes a night. I feel like he almost has to get 15 or 17 each game. And I agree with the facial hair because he took, obviously, preseason freshman year. He had no beard. He grew it out, I believe, in Big East play, and he's had it ever since. But it's just funny to look at his freshman photo. He doesn't have that signature Alex Caravan beard, the Cara beard. But we're gonna talk about the freshmen. But I have some breaking news about the team that our good our good friend Dave Borges just announced. For those of you wondering, probably very few of you, if UConn will have any walk-ons this season, the Huskies will have one. He'll likely be introduced at first night on Friday. So if you have any friends or you're at
Tell me I
UConn,
know who it is. Tell me it's who I'm thinking.
oh, we don't have a name.
I
So
really, really hope it is the son of Big 34. I really hope it's his son.
I don't know if he goes to UConn. I feel like he'd
It's
have to at
Andrew
this
Hur
point.
it's
I
Andrew
hope
Hurley
I
again.
hope it's Ray Allen. I hope it's Allen.
We can get our
Was he on
predictions.
was he on the bench for Rhode Island?
I didn't I didn't see. I'm not sure.
I
But
think I think I don't know how much he played, but he did play there. But I have no idea how much he actually played.
so if you go to UConn or you know someone that does, since this name has not been announced, there's a chance it's you. So I just practice your basketball skills in case you get called upon first night. But that's just a funny thing to see. I was actually not worried, but wondering about that. Like we had Jaylin Stewart on the floor in a 25-point game with 2 minutes left because we only have 12 players on the roster, which means we're going to have some of our big guys out there, even when it's in blowouts. So having just a guy to throw out there to prevent injury is big. But last point here, we'll talk about the freshmen. We haven't really touched on much of them yet. Liam McNeely, Ahmad Noel, and Isaiah Abraham all played three completely different roles. We'll start easy. Abraham didn't have a role. He played 3 minutes and didn't contribute anything. He's in that I think Jaden Ross role of last year, where he similar wing that's not going to see too much time. We'll go backwards to Mod Noel. He didn't play at all in the first half, like I said, but he came in the second half and it was electric. He drilled a three, top of the key, and it was either next possession or one of the next times down the floor. He hit a corner three, 6 points for Noel in 6 minutes. What do you guys think of him? I mean, obviously big expectations. He was before McNeely came in, he was our top recruit for this class, but didn't play much at all in the first half. Electric in the second half. I liked what I saw to Noel.
Yeah, I'll stay with Noel here. Don't want to talk about McNeely yet. We'll get to that in a minute. But Noel overall, it sort of exceeded the expectations that I feel like we placed on him. Obviously, once again, preseason game. I'm trying my best not to get carried away, but it's pretty exciting stuff. If you want to talk about a Joey, I feel like there he is for this year. I'm not sure he's going to play, 15 minutes a night, but if he can come in for 10 and he can hit a three or two, then that's pretty good stuff to see, and it'll obviously, grow his role into the coming years.
Yeah, I'm gonna obviously his back-to-back threes, those were great, but I am gonna go a little nitpicky here. When he had the turnover and then just fouled the guy on the way to the basket, you don't want to see that. That's lazy. That's getting pissed that you turn the ball over and not wanting to actually try and make a defensive stop. That's just plain out lazy. I'm sure Hurley really got into him for it, but now obviously he's a freshman. That was his first real college game, so it's obviously going to take a little bit of time for him to get acclimated. But I did just want to kind of point that out, just as a, I don't even know, just to point it out because it was lazy. But I think he'll be really good for us. He'll help us a lot.
And him and Mahaney back there seem to have a pretty decent connection. You could see them communicating well, who's bringing the ball up, who's running what. They love playing together, it looks like. So, I mean, that's also a very good sign.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if we play a 10-man rotation. I usually we've always played nine. The talent's there to play 10, don't get me wrong, but I'd be surprised if Hurley went down that route. That last ninth spot, it seems like it's between Ross and Noel. Ross had the upper edge tonight playing 16 minutes to Noel's six. But I mean, a lot of people I saw were in their projections, a lot of fans saying Noel's going to be the starting point guard. I knew that wasn't going to be the case. I knew he was going to. Hurley never, yeah, Hurley never really, unless you're like a 5 star, really starts freshman like that. But a 5 star freshman that did start Liam McNeely. I want to know what you guys have to say before I have to say what I have to say about McNeely.
McNeely looked like a freshman. McNeely looked like a freshman. I mean, this happens. He reminded me of Castle at the start of last year, obviously starting a little slow, trying to find his role within the offense. You could tell he was out there. He kind of is like a little duplicate of Caraban, and they're kind of trying to figure out what to do because they like the same spots and they do a lot of the same things. So trying to find a role for him I feel like is going to be the biggest growing pain throughout the season. Who is he? Who is he going to be on the court? But I mean, overall, there's really nothing to complain about. There's just nothing to fully write home about yet. He had the second highest plus minus on the team, if you wanna if you want to get into the deep analytical stuff. But overall, he definitely looked like a freshman, but he definitely shows a lot of promise.
Matt, are our brains connected or something? Because you just keep stealing what I'm gonna say. But I agree. He did look like a freshman. You had your crowd of Castle sucks, overrated, blah 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 last year because he played not too great against Stonehill. Womp womp. Now look where he is. Anyway, um, I agree with he did look like a freshman. He had 10 points, 4 boards, and I think 3 assists. Is that right? Three, I'm pretty sure. But he I think defining the role part is right, but I also think that he's gonna be so dangerous because he's gonna be like Castle. Teams aren't gonna know what he's gonna do. Obviously you have your standard guys that never go above the 3 point line, like Sampson and Reed, who won't shoot the ball. And you got your guys like Joey, who hardly go inside the paint. Um, but he's just going to be like a big wild card, like kind of like Castle. Castle had the ability to shoot the three ball on command if he needed to, but also take it for a rack attack to the rim and yam it on somebody's head. So, he's going to be, I think he's going to be kind of another wild card, but not as much as a wild card as Jaden Ross. But I think he's going to really open some eyes. And I think he's very skilled, very good. But like I've said with a lot of people, it'll take some time for him to get acclimated. But no doubt in my mind, this kid's a lottery pick.
And he was never invisible throughout the game. From our first points of the game, when he just went in and got that tough layup, he was a big part of the game. He was a big factor. I feel like, obviously we've had our triple doubles here the past few years with Tristan Newton. If it were to be anybody, I would say it's definitely McNeely. He'll definitely have those games this year where it's clicking, and I can't see a world where Hurley doesn't just get him in the center of the paint or near the free throw line and just let the offense run through him, have him hit some people backdoor, solo ball, backdoor cuts or deadly, and he could spread it too, pick and pop, just anywhere on the floor. You need him to do something, he can do it. So he'll definitely have games this year where he's upwards of 20 points a game, and hopefully he continues it. And like you said, is a lottery pick, top 10 pick.
Yeah, there's that one play I remember from, I believe it was in the first half, where he found Solo wide open under the hoop. He almost missed him. Solo had to scream at him, pass me the ball, I'm wide open, but it worked out. But yeah, I agree. He only had 10 points in this one, but just the threat that he is out there, being a five-star sniper that he is, even if he's not scoring the basketball, he's impacting the game on the offensive end because you can't leak off of him because he'll knock down a three if you do. But I want to talk about defensively. I didn't really like what I saw. I know we're comparing him to Castle a bit because he's a five-star, but McNeely had 4 fouls. He had some silly fouls. Obviously, he's a freshman, like you said, a freshman playing his first game. I'm not too concerned about that, but I feel like he's certainly he's a prototypical 3-and-D guy. At least he has the potential to be. Probably a little more than Alex Caraban does. Caraban's not a bad defender, but he's not as mobile as McNeely is. So, yeah, I feel like McNeely he has the potential to be a great defender, but I don't think he really showed it too much tonight.
And we had a lot of these same concerns with Caravan his freshman year. He he was the our punching bag for a little bit because he wouldn't get in the paint and he wouldn't get after rebounds. And Hurley has a method of just getting it into these guys' heads that they need to do that if they want to play and if they want to be successful, they need to follow the Hurley method of basketball, whatever that may be. And if I'm Dan Hurley, I'm really excited with what I saw tonight. He was very upset at halftime going in, but coming out of the game, he definitely has a smile on his face and definitely is grateful for all of this talent that he recruited and that they're all very good players.
Yeah, you have to be excited. I know we're picking this apart, but why not? I titled this October Overreactions. That's probably why you clicked this video. But let's recap what we got. We had a solo ball lottery pick. We had Tristan Newton comparison with Aiden Mahaney. We had Andre Jackson, Jaylin Stewart comparison. Am I missing any? But yeah, it's fun to do something like this. It's just fun to have UConn basketball back. It's gonna be a long 3 weeks until we play again against Sacred Heart. But you guys got anything else to add before we wrap up?
I was just gonna say, you know how these seasons go. In 2 months' time, we'll be coming off a loss to Xavier, and we'll be screaming at the computer about how our supposed to be best player, Alex Caraban, is not that good or something like that. But it's just a long season, and it's definitely just the start. Hopefully, we didn't overreact too much and made some good points. But overall, I feel like it's only positives to take from this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a fun season, and we will have for the our realist fans. If you remember this one, shout out to you. But our favorite video we ever recorded, not really, but the 52-minute St. John's rant after we lost that game. There will be one of those this year, and the Seton Hall one last year. But it'll be a fun season. Hopefully, obviously looking to three-peat, but honestly, like Connor said, I'm just really happy to have this team back and they really are playing with our feelings here because it is going to be a long 3 weeks. You go from having games 3 times every week to now having one and then 3 weeks to another one. So it was great to watch the guys play, get a first look at this team before we get going for real in just a couple of weeks.
Left the game healthy as well. Obviously, a big point.
I agree. I was about to make that same point. You don't want anyone to get hurt. Sure, you want them to play hard. You don't want them to just go through the motions out there, just run sets, not walk, but just go through the plays. But yeah, as long as everyone's healthy, you scored 102 points on October 14th against not a terrible team. Sure, they were mentioning on the broadcast URI's picked 11th in the A10 preseason poll, but that was a very tough team. They mentioned they're missing their top player who was in concussion protocol, so. Maybe URI. Maybe we'll start a URI podcast because they look a little dangerous this year. But yeah, that'll do it here for this episode. We're gonna get into our season previews over the next few weeks before the season starts. It's a really exciting time, like I said. It's just yeah, I don't got anything else to add. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next episode.